The stars looked different when death came calling. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching her tactical display with steady eyes. Red dots filled the screen like angry insects, each one representing a ship in the massive alien fleet heading toward Kepler 442b. "Ma'am, we're getting the full sensor picture now," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. His voice carried a tremor that he tried to hide. 112 ships. The biggest one is 3 kilometers long. Sarah nodded without taking her eyes off the display. She had seen big alien ships before, but nothing like this. The Zephyrian Armada moved through space like a school of deadly fish, their crystalline hulls catching starlight and throwing it back in rainbow patterns, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Any word from Earth Command?" she asked. "Negative, Captain. The nearest human fleet is still 3 weeks out. We're on our own." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Defiant was always on her own. That was what frigates did. They went where the big ships couldn't go, did what the big ships couldn't do. But this was different. This was suicide. The mining colony on Kepler 442b had 8,000 people. Miners, engineers, families, children. They had no weapons, no shields, no way to fight back. When the Zephyrians arrived, those people would die or become slaves. Sarah had read the reports from the 17 other species the aliens had conquered. She knew what happened to the survivors. "Lieutenant Martinez, what's our weapons status?" she called to the weapons officer. "All systems green, Captain. Pulse cannons charged, missile tubes loaded, point defense online." Martinez paused. "Captain, with respect, we can't fight that many ships." Sarah turned to look at her weapons officer. Martinez was young, maybe 25, fresh from the academy. He was right, of course. One small frigate against 100 alien warships was not a fight. It was a massacre waiting to happen. "Mr. Martinez, how long have you been on my ship?" she asked. 6 months, ma'am. "And in those 6 months, what have you learned about the Defiant?" Martinez thought for a moment. "That she's tougher than she looks, ma'am." "Exactly." Sarah turned back to the display. "Miss Torres, open a channel to the colony. Let them know we're here." The communication crackled to life, and the voice of Colony Administrator Webb filled the bridge. "Defiant. Thank God you're here. When will the fleet arrive?" Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. "Administrator, there is no fleet. It's just us." Silence stretched across the channel for long seconds. When Webb spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "Just you?" "One ship?" "One ship," Sarah confirmed. "We're going to buy you as much time as we can. Start evacuation procedures. Get everyone to the underground shelters." "Captain, with one ship, how long can you—" "As long as it takes, Administrator." Defiant out. The bridge fell quiet except for the soft hum of systems and the distant rumble of the engines. Sarah looked around at her crew. 37 men and women who had followed her into impossible situations before. They looked scared, but they looked determined, too. "Captain," called Ensign Kim from the sensor station. "The alien fleet is slowing down. They've spotted us." Sarah walked to the center of the bridge and studied the tactical display. The red dots had stopped moving forward. They were arranging themselves in a battle formation, like hunters surrounding a wounded animal. "They're probably wondering what one little human ship thinks it's doing here," said Martinez. "Let them wonder," Sarah replied. "Miss Torres, any luck intercepting their communications?" "Some chatter, Captain. The translation software is working on it." Torres adjusted her headset. "They seem amused." Amused. Of course they were amused. The Defiant was 200 meters of angular metal and ceramic armor. Next to the sleek alien ships, she looked like a flying brick. The humans had built her for function, not beauty. She was tough, reliable, and completely outgunned. "Captain," said Torres, "I'm getting a clear translation now. The alien commander is calling us entertaining. He's broadcasting our position to his home world like we're some kind of show." Sarah felt anger burn in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. Let him have his fun. Mr. Kim, what's the status of the colony evacuation? Emergency shelters are filling up, Captain. They'll have everyone underground in 2 hours. 2 hours. Sarah needed to keep one small ship alive against impossible odds for 2 hours. She walked to her command chair and sat down, her fingers moving across the control panel. All hands, this is the captain, she said over the ship's internal communication system. In a few minutes, we're going to face the largest alien fleet in recorded history. They think we're a joke. They think we're here to die quickly and quietly. She paused, letting her words sink in. They're wrong. We're here to show them something about humans they've never seen before. We're here to make them remember why they should fear us. We're here to protect 8,000 innocent people. And we're going to do it with everything we have. The bridge crew straightened in their chairs. Sarah could feel their fear changing into something else. Something harder. The Defiant has never run from a fight, and we're not starting today. All stations, prepare for combat. This is what we trained for. Outside the ship, the alien fleet began to move again. The massive crystalline ships accelerated toward the small human frigate, their weapons charging with deadly energy. In the command ship, Admiral Vexthul settled into his command throne and opened a bottle of his finest wine. This would be over soon, and he wanted to celebrate in style. Sarah watched the approaching fleet and smiled. The aliens thought they knew everything about human ships and human weapons. They had studied the wreckage from previous battles, analyzed human technology, decided that humans were inferior in every way that mattered. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Incoming transmission from the alien flagship, reported Torres. Put it through, Sarah said. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall alien creature with blue-green skin and too many teeth. Admiral Vexthul looked at the human captain with obvious amusement. Little human, he said in accented English. You have 30 seconds to surrender before I destroy your pathetic ship. Sarah looked back at him without blinking. Admiral, you have 30 seconds to withdraw from human space before we destroy your entire fleet. The alien's laughter filled the bridge like breaking glass. One ship against my armada? You humans truly are insane. Yes, Sarah said quietly. We are. The transmission ended, and the battle began. The alien laughter still echoed in Captain Sarah Chen's mind as the communication ended. On the main screen, the Zephyrian fleet spread across space like a deadly flower opening its petals. Each ship was a work of art, all smooth curves and flowing lines that seemed to bend light around them. Captain, they're launching fighters, reported Ensign Kim. Count is... Jesus. Ma'am. 200 small craft heading our way. Sarah studied the tactical display. The fighter craft moved like silver fish through black water, fast and graceful. Each one was probably bigger than the Defiant's shuttle bay, but they were just the appetizer. Behind them, the massive capital ships held position, their weapons charging with purple energy that made the space around them glow. Mr. Martinez, bring all weapons online. Miss Torres, broadcast on all frequencies that this system is under human protection. Captain, said Torres, the aliens are broadcasting too. They're calling this entertainment. The alien commander is describing the battle to his home world like it's a sporting event. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. To Admiral Vexthul, this wasn't a war. It wasn't even a real fight. It was a show, something to amuse his people while they watched a primitive species get crushed. Let them talk, she said. Actions speak louder than words. The first wave of alien fighters was now close enough for detailed scans. Each craft was sleek and deadly, armed with energy weapons that could punch through a battleship's armor. They moved in perfect formation, like dancers performing a deadly ballet. Fighters entering weapons range in 30 seconds, called Martinez. Sarah stood up from her command chair and walked to the center of the bridge. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were good people, trained professionals who had followed her through a dozen impossible situations. They deserved better than to die as entertainment for alien monsters. All hands, combat stations, she announced over the ship's communication system. Remember your training. Stay calm, stay focused, and trust your equipment. The alien fighters spread out, surrounding the Defiant like wolves circling a lone deer. Sarah could see their weapons powering up, energy signatures climbing toward lethal levels. "Captain, incoming transmission from the alien flagship," said Torres. "Put it through." Admiral Vexthal appeared on the main screen again, his blue-green features twisted in amusement. Behind him, Sarah could see other aliens gathering around displays, watching the approaching battle like spectators at a gladiator match. "Captain Chen," the alien admiral said, "I must admit, your species has courage. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Since you have entertained me, I will make your death quick and painless." Sarah looked at the alien commander with steady eyes. "Admiral, you're making the same mistake that 17 other species made before us. And what mistake is that, little human? You think that bigger always means better. You think that because your ships are larger and your fleet is bigger, you've already won." Sarah smiled coldly. "Humans learned a long time ago that size doesn't always matter. It's how you use what you have that counts." Vexthal's laughter was like breaking crystal. Wise words from a dead woman. "Begin the attack." The transmission ended, and space erupted in violence. The alien fighters opened fire all at once, purple energy beams lancing through space toward the Defiant. Sarah felt the ship shudder as the first shots hit their shields. "Shields down to 80%, reported Kim. "Hull breach on deck 4. Point defense, engage," ordered Martinez. The Defiant's surface suddenly bristled with small weapon turrets, each one spitting rapid-fire projectiles at the attacking fighters. The aliens had expected energy weapons, but humans had never abandoned kinetic weapons. Metal slugs moving at incredible speed tore through the alien formation. "Direct hit on Fighter Group 3, reported Martinez with satisfaction. 2 confirmed kills, but more fighters were coming. The aliens regrouped quickly, adapting to the human weapons. They began evasive maneuvers, their graceful ships dancing between the streams of projectiles. "Captain, they're learning our firing patterns," warned Martinez. "Next pass is going to hurt." Sarah watched the tactical display as the alien fighters completed their turn and began another attack run. This time they came from multiple directions, forcing the Defiant's point defense to split its fire. Energy beams hammered the small human ship. Armor plating blew away in chunks, spinning off into space. The lights on the bridge flickered as power conduits overloaded. "Shields down to 40%, reported Kim. "We've got fires on 3 decks. Damage control teams responding," called Lieutenant Hayes from engineering. "We can keep her together, Captain, but not for long." Sarah nodded grimly. The Defiant was tough, built to take punishment and keep fighting, but there were limits to what any ship could endure. And they were reaching those limits fast. "Captain," said Torres, her voice tense. "The alien commander is still broadcasting. He's calling us spirited but doomed. He says we're putting up better resistance than most species. But the outcome is obvious." Through the bridge windows, Sarah could see the massive alien capital ships moving closer. They had held back during the fighter attack, letting the smaller ships have their fun. But now they were coming forward to end the show. The lead ship was the size of a city, its crystalline hull reflecting the light of the local star. Weapons ports opened along its sides like the eyes of some ancient god of war. When it fired, the Defiant would cease to exist. "Captain," said Martinez quietly, "we've done what we could. Maybe we should consider evacuation." Sarah looked at her weapons officer with something like pity. "Mr. Martinez, where exactly would we evacuate to? Our shuttle wouldn't make it 50 kilometers before those fighters caught us." She turned back to the tactical display, studying the approaching alien dreadnoughts. Each one carried enough firepower to glass a planet. Together, they could turn the Defiant into vapor in seconds. "Besides," she continued, "we're not here to survive. We're here to buy time for the people on Kepler 442b. Every minute we stay alive is another minute for them to reach safety." Well, the first alien capital ship was now within optimal firing range. Sarah could see its main weapons powering up, energy signatures climbing toward devastating levels. "All hands," she announced over the communication system. "Prepare for capital ship engagement. It's been an honor serving with all of you." The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of systems and the distant sound of damage control teams working to keep the ship alive. Outside, the alien fleet closed in like a trap made of metal and energy. Admiral Vexthul was probably pouring another glass of wine, preparing to toast the destruction of the last human ship in the system. In his mind, the show was almost over. He had no idea what was coming next. Sarah walked to her command chair and placed her hand on a small, innocuous panel that most people would have overlooked. The panel was locked behind 3 separate security codes and a biometric scanner. It had never been used in combat before. "Miss Torres," she said quietly, "send a message on all frequencies. Tell everyone to maintain minimum safe distance." "Captain?" Sarah's finger hovered over the panel. "Tell them we're about to show them why humans don't build big ships." The alien dreadnought's main guns finished charging. Death was seconds away. Sarah smiled and pressed the button. Deep in the heart of the Defiant, something stirred to life. Hidden behind blast doors and security locks that required the captain's direct authorization, a weapon that existed in no official records began to wake up. But that awakening would have to wait. The alien dreadnought fired first. Purple energy beams thick as tree trunks lanced across space, each shot carrying enough power to level a city block. The Defiant twisted desperately, her engines screaming as Captain Sarah Chen threw the ship into an evasive pattern that would have torn apart a larger vessel. "Impact on our port side," shouted Ensign Kim, as the ship bucked like an angry horse. "Hull breach on decks 6 through 9. Sparks flew from control panels as the ship's systems overloaded. The lights went out for 3 terrifying seconds before emergency power kicked in, bathing the bridge in red light. "Damage report," called Sarah, fighting to keep her balance as another energy beam grazed their shields. "Shields down to 15%, reported Kim. "We've lost primary power to the port weapon array. Fire suppression systems are working overtime." Lieutenant Hayes's voice crackled over the communication system from engineering. "Captain, we're holding together, but barely. One more hit like that, and we're going to lose main power." Sarah nodded grimly. The Defiant was designed to take punishment, but she was still just one small ship against impossible odds. Around them, the alien fighters regrouped for another attack run, while the massive capital ships moved closer. "Mr. Martinez, return fire. Show them we're not dead yet." The Defiant's remaining weapons opened up, sending streams of projectiles and energy beams toward the alien formation. The shots struck the nearest dreadnought's shields and scattered harmlessly, like raindrops hitting a steel roof. "No effect, Captain," reported Martinez with frustration. "Their shields are too strong." On his command ship, Admiral Vexthul watched the human vessel's desperate attacks with amusement. The small ship was like an insect, trying to bite an elephant, admirable in its determination, but ultimately pointless. "Tactical," he called to his weapons officer. "How much longer until we can fire the main batteries again?" 40 seconds for full charge, Admiral. "But the lesser weapons should be sufficient to destroy them." Vexthul nodded. The human ship had survived longer than expected, but that only made the show more entertaining. His people loved a good underdog story, even when the underdog was doomed to fail. "Broadcasting update to the homeworlds," announced his communication officer. "Audience numbers are climbing. They want to see how long the humans can last." "Excellent," purred the Admiral. "Let them watch how the mighty Zephyrian Empire deals with those who dare to challenge us." The second wave of fighters completed their approach, and space filled with energy fire once again. This time, the alien pilots had learned from their earlier losses. They stayed farther apart, making it harder for the Defiant's point defense to target multiple ships at once. Purple beams struck the human ship from a dozen directions. More armor plating blew away, spinning off into the darkness. The Defiant's return fire was weaker now, several weapon turrets destroyed or damaged. "Shields down to 5%, reported Kim. "We're running on hull armor now." Sarah felt the ship shudder with each hit. The Defiant was dying by degrees, but she was still fighting. Her crew worked with desperate efficiency, rerouting power, sealing hull breaches, keeping their ship alive minute by minute. "Captain," called Torres, "the aliens are still broadcasting." "The Admiral is. He's giving commentary on our fighting style. He says we're primitive but persistent." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. To vex Thull, this wasn't a battle between life and death. It was entertainment. A show put on for his amusement. 8,000 colonists were depending on the Defiant. And to him they were just numbers in a game. "Miss Torres, open a channel to the colony. Let me know their status." "Defiant, this is Administrator Webb," came the reply. "Evacuation is complete. Everyone is in the underground shelters. How much more time do you need?" Sarah looked at the tactical display. More alien ships were moving into attack position. Even if the Defiant could somehow survive the next few minutes, there was no escape. No rescue coming. No hope of victory in any traditional sense. "Administrator, keep everyone underground until you get an all-clear signal. We're going to be busy for a while." "Understood, Defiant. And Captain, thank you. Whatever happens, you've given us a chance." The communication ended, and Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. 8,000 people were counting on her to buy them time. Her crew was counting on her to make their sacrifice meaningful. "Captain," said Martinez, "the alien capital ships are moving into close range. They'll have overlapping fields of fire in 90 seconds. Sarah studied the tactical display. 6 massive alien dreadnoughts were arranging themselves in a perfect formation, like hunters surrounding their prey. When they opened fire together, the Defiant would be caught in a crossfire that would vaporize the ship in seconds. "All hands, prepare for final engagement," she announced over the ship's communication system. "It's been an honor serving with you all." The bridge crew straightened at their stations. They were scared. Sarah could see it in their faces. But they were determined too. These were good people, brave people who had chosen to stand between innocent civilians and alien monsters. "Captain," said Kim quietly, "sensors are detecting massive energy buildup from all 6 capital ships. They're coordinating their firing sequences." Sarah nodded. This was it. Then, the end of the show. The final act of the entertainment that Admiral Vex Thull was providing for his people. In a few seconds, the Defiant would be nothing but expanding gas and twisted metal. But Sarah wasn't thinking about death. She was thinking about the hidden weapon deep in her ship's heart. The weapon that no alien database contained any record of. The weapon that human engineers had built in secret, testing it in the deep spaces between stars where no one could observe. "Mr. Martinez," she said calmly, "what's the status of the special package?" Martinez looked confused for a moment. Then understanding dawned in his eyes. "All systems green, Captain. Ready for deployment on your command." Sarah walked to her command chair and sat down. Around her, the bridge hummed with tension as the alien capital ships prepared to fire. Their energy signatures climbed steadily toward lethal levels. "Miss Torres," she said, "broadcast on all frequencies. Warn all vessels to maintain minimum safe distance." "Captain?" Torres looked puzzled. "Safe distance from what?" Sarah's finger hovered over the special control panel, the one that required her personal authorization and biometric confirmation. The one that would reveal humanity's secret to the galaxy. "Tell them," she said quietly, "that they're about to learn why humans don't try to build the biggest ships in space." The alien dreadnoughts reached full charge. 6 massive weapons, each one capable of destroying a city, prepared to fire at once. Sarah pressed her thumb to the biometric scanner and entered her authorization codes. "Firing relativistic kill vehicle," she announced. "All ships maintain safe distance." Deep in the Defiant's hull, blast shields retracted, and a weapon that had never been used in combat came online. The ship's reactor output spiked beyond anything the alien sensors had recorded. Power flowing into a magnetic acceleration system that bent the laws of physics to human will. Admiral Vex Thull had time to wonder what the strange human words meant before the universe taught him a lesson in kinetic energy that he would never forget. The magnetic acceleration chamber deep inside the Defiant hummed with power that made the ship's hull vibrate like a tuning fork. Captain Sarah Chen felt the vibration through her boots as every available bit of energy from the ship's reactor flowed into the weapon that officially did not exist. Energy spike detected from the human vessel, reported the tactical officer aboard Admiral Vex Thul's flagship. Power output is... That can't be right. Vex Thul turned from his wine to look at the readings. The small human ship was drawing more power than should have been possible for a vessel of its size. His tactical displays showed energy signatures that made no sense according to galactic warfare standards. What are they doing? He wondered aloud. The answer came in the form of a simple tungsten rod. No bigger around than a human's arm and twice as long. In any other context, it would have been an unremarkable piece of metal. The kind of thing that might be used for construction or manufacturing. But this rod was different. As it left the Defiant's magnetic acceleration chamber, it was traveling at 92% of the speed of light. The physics of what happened next were simple and terrible. When an object with mass approaches light speed, its kinetic energy becomes enormous. The tungsten rod that left the Defiant carried the kinetic energy of several nuclear weapons, concentrated into a projectile smaller than a telephone pole. It crossed the 50,000-kilometer gap between ships in 0.18 seconds. Admiral Vex Thul's flagship, the Infinite Dominion, was a marvel of Zephyrian engineering. 3 kilometers of crystalline armor and energy shields that could withstand any known weapon. The pride of an empire that had conquered 17 worlds. The relativistic kill vehicle hit the ship amidships and passed completely through it in the time it takes light to travel from one end of the vessel to the other. What followed was not an explosion. Explosions were crude things, chemical reactions that created heat and pressure. This was physics in its purest form. The conversion of kinetic energy into thermal energy on a scale that human minds could barely comprehend. The Infinite Dominion didn't break apart. It didn't burn. It simply ceased to exist as anything recognizable. The tungsten rod punched through the ship's armor like it was paper, its passage creating a tunnel of superheated plasma that expanded faster than the ship's structure could respond. In the first microsecond, the ship's hull began to glow white-hot. In the second microsecond, the superstructure started to buckle as thermal shock waves raced through the crystalline matrix. By the third microsecond, the flagship was coming apart at the molecular level. The light was visible from the planet's surface, a new star that blazed to life and then faded, leaving behind nothing but expanding gas and radiation. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Sarah Chen watched her tactical display as the largest signature simply vanished. Where the alien flagship had been, there was now only debris expanding outward at significant fractions of light speed. "Dear God," whispered Ensign Kim. "What did we just do?" "What did we just do?" "We showed them," Sarah said quietly. "What happens when humans get serious?" The shock wave from the Infinite Dominion's destruction hit the nearest alien ships like a hammer made of superheated gas and high-energy particles. Ships that had been preparing to fire on the Defiant found themselves tumbling through space, their systems overloaded by electromagnetic pulse, and their hulls holed by debris moving at relativistic speeds. Captain Veltar, second in command of the Zephyrian fleet, stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. The flagship was gone, not damaged, not destroyed in any conventional sense, but simply gone. His instruments detected trace amounts of heavy elements expanding in a sphere, but nothing that looked like a ship. "What happened?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "What did the humans do?" "Unknown, sir. Our sensors detected a massive energy spike from their vessel then." "Impact." "The Admiral's ship was struck by some kind of projectile." "Show me the recording." The main screen flickered to life, showing the last moments of the Infinite Dominion. In slow motion, they could see the human ship fire something too small and too fast for the cameras to track clearly. Then the flagship simply disintegrated, matter and energy expanding outward in a perfect sphere. "Run it again," ordered Veltar. Frame by frame. They watched the recording 5 times before anyone spoke. "Sir," said the tactical officer, his voice barely a whisper. "Preliminary analysis suggests the projectile was traveling at approximately 92% of light speed." The bridge fell silent. Every officer present was a trained engineer. familiar with the physics of space warfare. They all understood what they were seeing, even if their minds rebelled against accepting it. "That's impossible," said Veltar. "No ship that small could generate the power needed for relativistic acceleration." "Nevertheless, sir, that appears to be what happened." Veltar looked out at the expanding debris field where the pride of the Zephyrian fleet had been moments before. Around them, damaged ships struggled to restore power and seal hull breaches. The neat formation of the armada had become a scattered collection of wounded vessels. "Sir," reported the communication officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it through." Captain Sarah Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired, but determined, and her eyes held a coldness that made Veltar's skin crawl. "This is Captain Chen of the human vessel Defiant," she said in a calm voice that somehow carried more menace than any shout. "I want to make something very clear to your remaining ships. I want to make something very clear. I want to make something very clear." She paused, letting her words sink in. "What you just witnessed was one shot from one weapon system. The Defiant carries 5 more projectiles of the same type. Your admiral chose to treat human lives as entertainment. He chose to view this encounter as a show for your people's amusement." Sarah's voice grew colder. "I want you to understand that we are not entertainers. We are not victims. We are not prey for your empire to hunt. We are humans. And when humans are pushed, we push back harder than you can possibly imagine." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Veltar stared at the screen where the human captain had been. Around him, his officers waited for orders, but he had no idea what those orders should be. The playbook for dealing with primitive species did not include scenarios where they possessed weapons that could erase capital ships from existence. "Sir," said the tactical officer, "the human ship is powering up again. Energy signatures are climbing." Veltar looked at his sensor displays. The small human vessel, damaged and outnumbered, was preparing to fire again. If Captain Chen was telling the truth about having 5 more of those impossible weapons, she could destroy the entire fleet. For the first time in his military career, Captain Veltar faced a decision that would determine not just his fate, but the fate of the Zephyrian Empire itself. The humans had changed the rules of the game, and there was no going back. Captain Veltar stared at the tactical display where the expanding cloud of debris marked the grave of the Infinite Dominion. Around him, the bridge crew of his cruiser waited for orders that he did not know how to give. In 300 years of Zephyrian military history, no enemy had ever destroyed a dreadnought with a single shot. "Sir," reported his communication officer, "emergency transmissions are coming in from all ships. They're asking for orders." Veltar understood their confusion. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 civilizations by following a simple formula: deploy overwhelming force, demonstrate superiority, accept surrender. The process had never failed before, but the humans had just rewritten the rules of engagement. "Tactical, what's the status of the human vessel?" he asked. "Still functional, sir. Minor damage from our earlier attacks, but their weapon systems appear to be fully operational. Energy readings suggest they're prepared to fire again." Veltar looked at the small human ship on his display. The Defiant was barely a speck compared to his remaining capital ships, but size no longer seemed to matter. If the humans could accelerate projectiles to near light speed, every ship in his fleet was vulnerable. "Sir," said his tactical officer quietly, "we need to consider our options. If they really do have 5 more of those weapons," he didn't need to finish the thought, 5 more shots could destroy the entire fleet. The survivors would be left drifting in space, waiting for rescue that might never come. And for what? To conquer one small mining colony that was already evacuated? "Communication officer, open a channel to the human ship," Veltar ordered. Captain Sarah Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but alert, and her eyes held the kind of resolve that Veltar had seen in mirror during his own darkest battles. "Captain Chen," he said carefully, "I am Captain Veltar, now commanding the Zephyrian fleet. I believe we need to discuss terms." Sarah studied the alien officer for a moment. Unlike Admiral Vex Thul, this one didn't look amused or entertained. He looked worried. And that was exactly the reaction she had been hoping for. "Captain Veltar," she said, "my terms are simple. You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawing from this system. Any ship that remains after that time limit will be fired upon." 60 seconds is not enough time to coordinate a fleet withdrawal, Veltar protested. "Then you'd better start giving orders quickly," Sarah replied. "Because, in 55 seconds, I'm going to demonstrate what happens to the second largest ship in your formation." Veltar felt sweat form on his skin despite the ship's climate control. He looked at his remaining vessels on the tactical display. 47 ships against one small human frigate should have been an easy victory. But those numbers didn't mean anything when the enemy could punch holes through reality itself. "All ships," he broadcast on the fleet command frequency, "begin immediate withdrawal from this system. Full reverse, maximum speed." "Sir," protested his weapons officer, "we outnumber them 47 to 1. Surely we can find a way to—" "Did you see what happened to the Admiral's ship?" Veltar snapped. "Do you want to explain to your family why you thought our armor could stop a projectile moving at 90% of light speed?" The weapons officer fell silent. Around the bridge, other crew members worked with desperate efficiency to coordinate the retreat. Nobody wanted to be the next example of human weapons technology. On the Defiant, Captain Chen watched the alien fleet begin its withdrawal with satisfaction. The massive ships were turning slowly, their engines building power for the long acceleration out of the system. "They're actually doing it," said Lieutenant Martinez with amazement. "They're running." "Intelligence was right about their psychology," Sarah replied. "Zephyrians are aggressive, but they're not stupid. They know when they're outmatched." "Captain," reported Torres, "we're intercepting their fleet communications. They're broadcasting emergency signals to their home territories. The message is, they're telling all Zephyrian forces to avoid human ships at all costs." Sarah nodded. That was exactly what she had hoped to achieve. Word of this battle would spread throughout the Zephyrian Empire and beyond. Other alien civilizations would hear the story and think twice before threatening human colonies. "Ma'am," said Kim, "the lead alien ships are clearing the system boundary. Should we escort them out?" "No need," Sarah replied. "I think they understand the situation." As the last Zephyrian ship disappeared into hyperspace, Sarah allowed herself to relax for the first time in hours. The Defiant was battered and scarred, but she was still intact. More importantly, the 8,000 colonists on Kepler 442b were safe. "Miss Torres, open a channel to the colony." Administrator Webb's face appeared on the screen, and Sarah could see relief written across his features. "Captain, what's the situation?" "We detected some kind of massive energy release. The alien fleet has withdrawn," Sarah reported. "You can begin bringing people up from the shelters. The immediate threat is over." "How did you— I mean, one ship against their entire fleet?" Sarah smiled slightly. "Let's just say that human engineers have been busy over the past few years. We may not build the biggest ships in the galaxy, but we build ships that can do the job." The transmission ended, and Sarah walked to the bridge windows. Outside, space was peaceful again. Stars twinkling in the darkness as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed, and the ripples from this battle would spread across known space. "Captain," said Martinez, "what do we do now?" "Do we report to Earth Command?" "We'll file our report according to standard procedures," Sarah said. "Though I suspect Command is going to have some interesting questions about our weapons test." She turned back to face her crew. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it was probably suicide. Instead, they had just redefined the balance of power in the galaxy. "All hands," she announced over the ship's communication system. "This is the captain. The alien fleet has withdrawn, and the colony is safe. We accomplished our mission with minimal casualties and demonstrated the effectiveness of new human defensive technologies." She paused, thinking about Admiral Vex's Thull and his casual cruelty, his assumption that humans were nothing more than entertainment. "But more than that," she continued, "we sent a message to every hostile species in the galaxy. We told them that human space is not a hunting ground. We told them that human lives are not a form of entertainment, and we told them that when humans say no, we mean it." The bridge crew smiled at that. They had started the day as the crew of one small frigate facing impossible odds. They were ending it as the people who had shown the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Mr. Hayes," Sarah called to engineering, "what's our status for the journey home?" "We'll need some repairs, Captain, but she'll hold together." The Defiant's tougher than she looks. That she is, Mr. Hayes. That she is. As the Defiant began its journey back to human space, Sarah thought about the future. Word of this battle would spread, and other alien species would have to recalculate their assessment of human capabilities. Some would be deterred from aggression. Others might seek alliance with the species that had just demonstrated the ability to destroy capital ships with single shots. But all of them would remember the day that a tiny human warship stood alone against an empire and won. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. Size doesn't always matter. Technology isn't always about making things bigger. And humans have a talent for turning physics into weapons. It was a lesson that would echo through space for generations to come.